Hello.
Hello, good morning,
Hello,
everybody.
hello.
Good morning, good
Afternoon.
afternoon.
All right. Well, listen, thank you all for being here today. We're talking about connections in real estate. My name is Mark Neuterman. I am your host and moderator. But first things first, I want to introduce two very, very dear and close friends of mine, Parker Beatty and Stanton Schnepp. And I'd love to just give everybody a little bit more of a background in terms of what is your position at Compass, and then in terms of the actual region itself, things like how many agents are there, volume, and then kind of what's the market like. So, Parker, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on that.
Sure, I'm the regional vice president in Southern California. It's a region called Southern California, SoCal, and Hawaii, and that runs from about the Central Coast down to Orange County. We have 4,800 agents, and we do about $35 billion in sales. So it's a large operation, lots of folks, lots of offices, and I started at Compass about 6 years ago as a sales manager in our Brentwood location, moved over to their Beverly Hills location, and sort of became managing director and currently overseeing the region. So that is my story.
I love that. And then very quickly, Parker, how's the Southern California Hawaii market? Just a little bit of color and context
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah, obviously, listen, the markets are regional. However, we are predominantly flat as far as units go. I mean, again, blending together all the units, it may be a little bit different in one city than it is another, but as a region, Southern California is sort of flat on units, but we are seeing prices increasing. So our sales volume is up a little bit due to prices, not so much due to the actual number of units being sold. And there's some different things that are tamping that down: interest rates, inventory, certainly. And there's a few laws that passed in Los Angeles that have really suppressed our higher end properties. But that's sort of the market. So we haven't seen a huge pop. I know a few other areas in the country have, but we're holding steady here.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And then Stanton, talk to us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stanton Schnepp. I'm the Vice President of Programming and Corporate Initiatives here in the DMV, and that stands for the District, Maryland, and Virginia. Not the place where you go and have the three-point turn parallel parking test. It's not that. So it's DMV. In 2023, we did about 9 billion in this region, and that includes Central Maryland and Baltimore, and we have about 2,000 agents in our region. As far as our market, it's still fluctuating, still very, very low inventory. Condos in the district here are sort of slowed down a bit, but in the suburbs of Virginia, very, very competitive. So it's we have a little bit of variation amongst our markets.
Love that. I appreciate that. And then again, I'm your host, Mark Neuterman. I know some of you or many of you have seen me in different spots with Compass for 6+ years. I was a top agent in San Francisco, sales manager with Parker down in South Bay, Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach, Torrance area, management director of management strategy for California, Hawaii, and now a Compass coach. And I also have the Real Estate Referral. I'm the founder CEO of that, which is an outside venture that's dedicated to free referral partnerships and getting everybody connected and introduced. So if you've seen, Compass Inner Circle, Real Estate Referral, that's what this is. The way I've always looked at it, the way I've coached is the best referral is going to be the best fit for the client. And somebody might really love me and not be the biggest fan of you, and somebody might love you and not be the biggest fan of me. So it's on us to continuously build a bench of referral partnerships. And so it's an introduction network where if anybody wants to get signed up, you've seen the links in the emails that have come out in the Zoom, 100% free. Principal agents, team members, we're doing referral events, both live and in person. We're doing referral speed dating, which is fun. But as we get people who want to get introduced and connected, it's just going to create more power in numbers. So really, really excited about all of that. And thank you all for being here today. So Parker, I want to go back to you now to think about and talk about how long have you been in real estate completely and done sales? And what are the different stages that you've gone through in the industry?
Got it. So I'd say really starting in sales in the early 2000s. And then found my way sort of into a management path after I've been in, flipped homes and sold homes and built homes. and found myself in a management path and some opportunities for ownership in businesses. And then I saw it when Compass came along. I thought, oh boy, that's going to be, there's going to be a very bad collision between real estate and technology. If there hasn't already been, I want to be on the right side of that wave. And I sort of got swept up in the wave of Compass, and here I am. So that's sort of how I got to where I am. I'm sorry, Mark, what was the twist on your question there?
Well, just, in terms of the different hats that you've worn, different levels of experience in the industry, because you did a lot on the sales side. And I think it's really important right now, as we're seeing a lot of the shifts and a lot of things that have happened. There's a lot of agents that have not gone through either a down market, a shifting market, or pivots. I know for myself, I started in 2002. And so I got to see, what happened with the double-edged sword in 06, 07, 08 of this incredibly amazing market all of a sudden going sideways. But now there's other variables as well.
Yeah, listen, and I've been through a few of these. I started out of college at a real estate investment company, and it was 1993, and that was a downturn. So people were not investing. And then we saw it again in 2008. And prior to 2008, I was a genius. I was super smart. All my properties were doing very well. I was making a ton of money. And then 2008, I found out I was not a genius. And I think that's when I was able. I had done well enough in sales and in building where I said, I'm going to take a little bit of time off. Yeah. So listen, it's changed a lot, but it's an incredible perspective. I think many of our agents have been through many cycles. And I think this call, more than anything else, should serve as a reminder to everyone here that it's back to some fundamental activities and the importance of those activities. I'd say that the circumstances surrounding us today, with the changes with the NAR settlement happening specifically, that really are going to place a new demand upon all of our agents to get better. You're going to have to learn new dialogues. You're going to have to learn new scripts. You're going to have to do, if it's not already being done in your particular state or region or area, you're going to have to learn how to do better buyer presentations and really demonstrate your value. And in Southern California, for buyers, we have not had to do that. And we're going to have to do that now. And there is a lot of discussion and a lot of confusion around this. It's like, how's it going to work? We don't really know yet. The settlement hasn't come through. But so I like to say, let's try to focus on the things that we can control. And that in particular in this conversation is we can control how we're going to stack the deck in our favor and learn different dialogues to present to our clients. And also, how are we going to fortify our network across the country, across the state or the city, whatever it might be for you in your region? How are we going to fortify that to make sure all these things are still going to work to the best of our abilities? So I'm excited about that conversation for today.
Awesome. Very exciting. Stanton.
So I guess the question was really the industry in my past. So I am not as focused as Parker. Parker seemed like he came out of high school very focused on what he's doing. This is a fourth reinvention for me. I started out as a copywriter and creative director for ad agencies. I got an interior design degree. I then decided to become an actor, and I was an actor for 20 years in LA. And then 17 years ago, I decided to move to DC and start real estate. I moved here and I knew 4 people, so I had a very big sphere of 4. And I just started, selling houses. I was with Coldwell Banker, and then I joined this thing called The Compass in 2015 in May. They came here and said, hey, we're starting this thing. New York was the first market. DC was the first expansion market. And so I became an agent here at Compass. Soon thereafter, one of my mentors here, Gene Martinez, said, would you want to be a broker? And I said, that sounds like a fun job. Maybe so. So I did that in October of 15. And we thought we were building a brokerage that was just going to be this sort of boutique brokerage. It was going to be like New York, DC, maybe Miami, kind of a small little thing. And here it is, 10 years later, and we are the #1 brokerage in America for the 3rd year in a row. So it's quite interesting how that's just all developed, but it's just all came one step at a time. But I will say, through my different careers, and it's kind of what Parker alluded to, now is the time to bring it all forward. But through my careers, I think all your experience and people on this call have probably had other different professions as well. You can bring and pull on all that because it brings you to your current place right now in life. So you might want to dig back in some of those other careers because there's things you learned back there. I know that I did that I'm actually using today. A lot of acting things that I use, and I may allude to some of them on this call as well, are very beneficial in our current day environment. So I think you're right, Parker. This is the time to kind of bring it all forward, but we can all also just pull from our past and see what we can use from that as well.
I really love that, Stanton. So, for myself, I was in flight school to be a pilot at 17 and got licensed at 18. So I came out of the gate like Parker back. I was a genius. I was buying houses, properties, investment, development, residential, commercial. 2008 happened, but I learned so much then. And then I was in San Francisco, Compass came in. Everybody's like, well, it's not going to last. This is a fad, right? All these brokerages saying that, but I joined and I loved it and fell in love with the people. And when we talk about connections, I met Parker a little more than 5 years ago when I moved down to LA to become a sales manager. Stanton and I met national initiatives, everything else we were doing together. But to your point, these are the connections that last. And so all the different things I've done, I always look back to who do I know? Here we are 5+ years later, able to come together and connect for all of you, hundreds and hundreds on this panel to be able to talk a little bit. So in terms of those connections, Parker, back to you. When we talk about connections, are there any connections you can think of that have helped you become, you're very humble, but one of the most influential people in Los Angeles, regional vice president with Compass. You do a lot, you manage a lot, incredible volume, incredible region. But are there any connections you can think of or talk about that have helped you get to this place?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I want to talk about this, and I just want to let everyone know on the call, we're going to get to some actionable ideas and some concepts that are going to help you. But I was a sales manager in Santa Barbara, and this is a purposeful story, by the way. In order to network and learn, get more friends and that sort of thing, I joined a committee on the board of realtors, and the gentleman who was the president or the executive officer of that board of realtors at the time was a gentleman named John Nisbet. And so we became fast friends, and I kept in touch with him. And then I actually was on the board of directors of the board, and he actually at that moment retired and went to become a manager that year at a global banker. And so John and I stayed friends, and we, went to lunch or breakfast or whatever every quarter, every few months, and just stayed in touch. And it wasn't until after I left Santa Barbara, it was a few years later, literally a couple of years later, that I got a call from John. And I said, hey, would you be interested in learning about this thing called Compass? So this was out of a relationship where I was not seeking anything. I think there's something that opens up when you network or participate in a philanthropy, something where you're just there to give. There's a sort of a universal vibe, energy that you give off that is, I'm not there to like, hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? Hey, do you want to buy or sell real estate? It's like, I was there, I was open, I was seeking to serve and help and, certainly meet people, but I made friends. And this was something that came of that. And I think there's something very powerful. Right now, I was talking to some agents just last week, and they said, Parker, I'm in touch with all my clients, and it's just nothing's happening. And we had a long conversation, but I think that for me, the takeaway was like, oh, we need to do a little bit more to deepen and be very purposeful about those relationships, which in this case might be, are you providing information about the updates that are happening in the real estate world? Or two, are you doing some different things to serve your community that will then benefit you and your network later, but you're not seeking something from it right then? I can't emphasize that enough, that if you go to get involved in something you're passionate about, it's something that's really aligned with your personality. That really adds a lot of power. And I think that's the way people make really, really great connections.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Stanton.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like one specific incident, but I will say that making connections for me is really all about curiosity. Whether you're just talking to someone in front of them or you're at a party, just be really curious and just ask questions and listen. And they may bring up something and just say, tell me more about that. One thing that I think, and agents have said this to me, like, I just don't know, I'm not good at parties, I feel self-conscious. Well, the whole thing is when you're self-conscious, your consciousness is on yourself. So if you actually put your consciousness on the other person who's across from you at the party, wherever you are in life, your consciousness is over them. It's their conscious versus being self-conscious. So when you do that, if you just really focus on the person in front of you, ask questions, be curious, and dive in, you won't feel self-conscious. You would actually be very connected to them. So that is what we're trying to do really from a basic level, is just to connect to people. So that's a tip that I always like to think about. And I use it even now. If I think that I'm going into a situation, I feel like, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Just, you don't have to say anything. All you have to do is be curious and ask questions.
I would love for every single person on this call to think about those you choose for any kind of representation, somebody that you're going to work with. And often it's going to be somebody that you trust, somebody that you like, and somebody that you believe knows what they're talking about, right? They're going to be very credible. So when you think about what Stanton is saying in terms of authenticity, and being able to have these conversations and then ask somebody about themselves. People like to talk about certain things, right? They want to talk about their families, their jobs, their pets, their children. Like it's pretty across the board where you're going to be able to sit and ask somebody and you see them light up with a smile. Oh, they're growing up so fast. But one actionable item I want to share with everybody that has gone really well with all of my clients, and this is something that I do, and this is actually the inspiration for the real estate referral, is you can always be introducing others. If you are in this industry, even if you don't have homes to sell or buyers or sellers, you can always be reaching out to your sphere and connecting them with other folks that you know. And it might be somebody in a different industry. Maybe one of their children says, I really want to get into the music industry. And you have a contact in the music industry. And you just always constantly stay in front of folks making those connections as well.
Mark, I want to piggyback off that for
Yeah.
just 1 second. And there is a book called The 7 Levels of Communication, and one of the strategies that this guy uses is networking out of nothing, which is go ask 5 people. Like, hey, 5 different people. Do you have a good CPA? And on a scale of 1 to 10. And you're going to find of the 5 people, 1 or 2 people really like their CPA, for example, and 3 or 4 people don't. Which then you can immediately, call that CPA again, for example, and say, hey, CPA, what does your best client look like? Because I've got some people I may want to refer to you. And then you can then refer the people who don't care for their CPA rather to that CPA. Just like for an example, this could be with a landscaper, this could be with a plumber, this could be with an electrician, this could be with a business manager of any kind, this can be with a financial manager of any kind. Because if you are the person who is referring clients to that individual, there is a really good chance that when a referral comes to them, they're going to give it to you. Now that you may say, yeah, but they have a best friend over here. It's like, yes, they have a best friend, but if you're referring clients to them, they are going to think of that a little bit differently. So it's just a little bit of a strategy that you can implement anywhere, starting from zero, just by being curious and asking people, do they have this particular vendor or person in their life that they really like, and then actively referring them out. I like that a lot.
Love that. As leaders at Compass and having been in your positions, not as high, but working with you, when you see top agents at Compass, and there are many on this call, by the way, is there anything that really stands out, kind of those actionable things or anything we're talking about, what they do in terms of connections, network, relationship building that you can share with the group?
I mean, I will say that there's agents who are there's listing agents that I can think of that are so gifted when they walk through, they go to a house, they're doing the walkthrough, and they immediately notice a picture of that was Machu Picchu. Oh my goodness, we were at Machu Picchu, and they immediately start making those connections right there. This one agent I'm thinking of, she's brilliant at really just sort of going through the house and making 3 connections on different things before you even sit down to have a conversation. So just seeing what's in front of you, commenting on it, and see how you can thread it through. That's one thing I've noticed about really great agents who are able to do that. They're able to take what they are. And part of that is mirroring. You're mirroring the person you're with there, and you're sort of kind of making sure that they are seen. So that's one quality.
Yeah, I like that, Stan. I would say the thing that I get from the top agents here is congruency, right? The top agents that I work with in Los Angeles, in Southern California, are totally congruent. They are about real estate. Now, there's a few of them who are amazing that have a design studio, that have sort of an adjacent business, but many, the vast majority, on the whole, they are not. They're not doing other. They're not an appraiser. They're not a this. They're not a lender. They're not a stager. They're not these other things. They are about real estate, and that's what they talk about every day, and they love it, and they're involved in it. So I'd say for the people on this call, like for all of you, how congruent are you? Are you doing this 100%? Or are you doing it 90%? People can tell when you are in alignment with what you're doing and the passion that you speak about. And Stanton, I would say that just kind of carries through to like, oh, it's the small things. You know all the inventory. You've been in this house and that house. So the great agents are out there working. It is not a part-time thing. It is a full-time thing, and they have a certain dedication to learning about all of the inventory, understanding architecture, understanding the business environment, understanding they might not understand the lending environment, but they've got great lenders they can refer to. And I would say finally, the thing that the great agents, the really great ones, are doing is they are constantly networking, and it's really without trying. Although there's one particular agent I'm thinking of who does a call sheet, and it is not all clients. It's like vendors, it's lenders, it's investors, it's all these sorts of things. And they call through that list every single day, no matter what, without fail. So that person, I think the list is like 25 people long, but if you had a list of 10 people or 5 people, they're calling their relationships, they're calling agents across the country. They are super intentional and super congruent about what they're doing. So I think that now is a great time to reevaluate, like what are all the things you're doing? Are you congruent with the business, or are you kind of drifting? And I'd say that people are attracted to that congruency, that focus, and the energy that comes from that.
And that focus and that energy, Parker, I will say, does not necessarily mean you have to be an extrovert. You can be an introvert as well, because a lot of agents I speak with going, I'm not that person who's going to be out there, dancing on the table at a bar and doing all this stuff. No, you don't have to. But the intentionality is what the important thing is. You know the market, you're in there, and you do it full time. So not to worry if you consider yourself not an extrovert, because not all of us are. It can work both ways.
Well, fun fact for everybody, I'm an introvert. And, people always giggle at that when they're like, but you're speaking and you're doing all this different stuff. And, to piggyback on both of you, if you are an expert in this, folks are going to want to work with you, and they're going to be fine paying you for expert representation to be the best, which means being in it. And I've worked with a lot of folks, and they say, well, confidence, right? I struggle with confidence, imposter syndrome. I might be an introvert, whatever it is. If you are in it, as Parker said, this congruency. Quick story, when I was in San Francisco, I'd done a lot of real estate back in Central Florida when I was young, everything there. But when I got to San Francisco, I did not know anybody. And so when I got into real estate there, all I had, even as an introvert, to learn the market data, become an expert, to know what I was talking about, and to set up my little fold-out table with free coffee and property flyers at the farmer's market, just to stand there and try to meet people every Saturday morning. It went from nothing to 23 million in sales in my first year. And that was literally by being an expert, overcoming the fear, and putting myself in it. So anybody on here can do the exact same thing.
Did you serve good coffee? I mean, I can't, you must have served good coffee, right?
It's terrible coffee. And a lot of people just took the free coffee and left, and then just didn't want to pick up my flyers. And it was a terrible walk home that day. Parker, I want to swing it back to you. We talk about top agents, but now let's also split between the luxury agents versus not. There's a lot of folks that really want to focus more on the volume, a little bit lower price point. And then you have some folks that it's not going to be the same quantity, but these are going to be your 30, 40, $50 million properties. Beverly Hills, LA has quite a few of those. When it comes to how they handle relationships, is there any difference there?
I have to say that really the people I was talking about earlier are those agents, and it is you have people who are expert, right? They have mastery over what they're doing, and so they're able to speak with a business manager, they're able to speak with a high net worth individual, and they have mastery over the inventory and the industry in the city. Now, there's a lot of things that surround that, like understanding about the locations that people vacation and the fancy watches and cars and things that you speaking the language of these high net worth folks. And I think that's something that is acquired over time. But I'd say something all of us can do better today is really become expert in our market, and people are attracted to that. And I'd say that it's that constant networking. And if you are someone out there who wants to rise into the luxury market, then if you talk to most folks who are in luxury, they're going to tell you you need to hang out with wealthier people. I think a way to do that, if you're just someone who's out there and you're like, well, how do I do that? It's like, well, is there a philanthropy you're passionate about? Generally in philanthropies, there's a few patrons that are very wealthy people. I worked with someone who was involved in a literacy project, and there was some, there's some very wealthy people involved in that, and that they started meeting people at they sort of did events at people's fancy houses and this sort of thing. And this was one way that they started getting familiar with this community of higher net worth individuals. So, or looking for businesses where people are sort of really moving up the ladder. That could be in technology, it could be in different startups, it could be in different investment. Conversely, also getting to know business managers that are dealing with high net worth individuals. But again, those business managers and anyone else who's going to refer you need to know that you are absolutely 100% in, and that you are a 100% expert, because they're not going to take a risk on someone who is not 100% in it. They're not going to take the risk that you're going to embarrass them. So, sort of backing out on the referral piece, Mark, I'd say if you have, and maybe this is for a future question that we're going to have here, but as you're looking at your referral network across the country, you really need to dig a little bit deeper there, because you need to make sure that the person that you have a relationship with has the new scripts dialogues approach and can demonstrate their value, and that you're probably going to need more than one person to lean on there, but you're going to need to make sure they're doing their homework and that they're adding value. So when you do that really important referral for a client of yours, you know that they are up to speed. So being up to speed, being excellent, and being sort of a master at all of this is really terrific. And I'm going to just read a piece of a quote from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And he says, mastery is not only about getting better at your craft, but also about finding ways to eliminate the obstacles, distractions, and other annoyances that prevent you from working on your craft. And I'd say now there's more noise than ever. So it's like, what are you doing to work on your craft every week? And I think that's a super important question right now.
I love that. So let's dig into action, because one thing I know for all of us is, first off, thank you to the hundreds of Compass family members that decided to join us today. But when you're listening to a panel, webinar, it's not the what, it's the how. Let's talk action about how to actually do this. So first off, if anybody has questions, please put them in the Q&A. We're going to make some time at the end for that. But I often love to break referrals down when we talk about it into agent-client sphere, right? Now, one question already came in: best practices to promote yourself to agents that you don't know in other markets. Stanton, do you want to take that?
So agents you don't know in other markets. All right. I'm going to back up though, Mark. I want to really talk before you start reaching out to any agent in any market. Let's just say you need a referral in LA. I think the most important thing you do before you pick up the phone or anything like that, you need to be clear on what type of client you're referring. How do they think? How do you make them feel? Because they actually would probably love to have you be helping them in LA, but you don't live there. So constantly we're often said like, oh, I wish you could help me. Well, I can't. So I think it's really important, because we've all placed referrals that have not worked out. And we know how painful that is. It's all of a sudden, gosh, I thought that was going to be really great. I met them at this event. Yeah, we were a little drunk, but whatever. But I thought this was going to be a great referral. It didn't turn out to be a great referral because the person let my clients down. So Parker and I taught this course at Compass called Foundations, and it breaks down the thinking styles. So it might be, and you may already have your system to do this, but if you don't, here is, I'm just going to lay out a system that you might think about, just to sort of think about before you start connecting with other agents out there, think about your clients. So what kind of thinkers are they? Are they a big picture thinker? Those people they're expansive thinkers. They use their intuition. They really want you, if you're listing their home, to cover it from A to Z. They want to go and vacation on the Riviera in France while you're listing their home, but they want to know that everything's being taken care of. So that is definitely a skill set that some agents have. And that would probably be a great fit for your clients. Or are your clients feelers? They're feelings thinkers. They're about their feelings, the sensations. They have, a lot of emotional equity in their current home. If they're finding a new place, they may want to live in a neighborhood that, their mothers lived in and their generations have lived in. It may have a lot of meaning for them. So those are specific kinds of clients as well. Are they rational thinkers? They're very logical. They just thrive on analysis. They're very spreadsheets and data people. That's another kind of client. And the fourth one might be sort of a functional thinker, where they're focused and they're direct and they really don't want a lot of chit chat. So if you have a referring agent that's really chitty chatty, blah, 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 and not direct, that might not be a great fit. So I bring up these four styles just to bring up the point that you really need to know who you're referring out and make sure that you have a handle on that before you even pick up the phone to then make a referral. Now, granted, what this does is you may want to look at your current list of who you have in what market, and you may realize, oh my goodness, I just have one agent in LA, and that person is a big picture thinker, and my clients, now that I've done this exercise, they're actually really functional thinkers. They need a very direct kind of person. So you may want to have several referral partners in a specific market. So I bring that up because not every referral agent in every market is going to be right for your clients.
And Mark, was the question how, ways to find referral agents?
Yeah. So the question is best.
I didn't even
best
answer the question.
practices.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So look, it takes some effort. So I've had we have a few, for instance, I'll just go through a list. So we do retreats, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, that retreat was too big. As a result, Compass is going to do a bigger retreat this coming year and a smaller retreat to accommodate. One's going to be 1,500, one's going to be 2,500 people. But the reality is, it is your responsibility to make it smaller. It's Compass's responsibility to bring the people together. It's your responsibility to do the work. It's going to be very hard for Compass with 38,000 agents to have spoon feed the exact right person to you. It is going to take work on your part. What does that look like? That could look like emails to, I don't know, the sales manager on the call are going to get on it, but I get emails from people like, hey, I'd like a referral partner. It has to be specific. What price range? What area? Los Angeles is huge. It is huge. So it's so we would need some specifics there. You can use the network tool. There are so many affinity groups at Compass. There's a website I don't have. Mark, maybe you could send it out, but it's all the affinity groups at Compass. There are dozens of them. So they're right there. It's like the actual physical meetings we have. There's been luxury retreats. There's been various retreats. There was an economic and summit in California earlier this year. There's something going on in Miami. A little shout out to our folks in Florida coming up here in the next few weeks, and that still has some space. So there's lots and lots of activities. You can go physically meet people. There are affinity groups which do online meetings. Of course, you could go down to the basic of just find an agent tool. You can see who's doing business that looks like it might fit your client. So there are a lot of different avenues, and you just need to focus on giving them a try and seeing what you can do. Mark, does that answer the question, do you think?
Oh, that's perfect, because, the real estate referral when in building that out, it's because of my experience as an agent, my experience as a manager, and then as a coach, because I'm always coaching clients to say, let's just say you're in California and you have a lot of clients that are moving to Florida. And I'll ask them, who do you have in Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miami? And they say nobody. And I say, so we have the migration reports, we have all this data, we have all this, we know people are moving there. They're probably going to buy on that side. That's a listing on your side. And not only do you have nobody, you should have 3, 4, 5, 6 on the other side. And then the question, as was asked, well, how do I meet them? And that's why I've been building the real estate referral, because in my mind, I know as an agent, I'm going to say, hey, if I wanted a agent in Miami who's been doing this for 20 years that does a $5 million price point, they do at least 30 million in sales a year, maybe they speak another language, it's that much easier to make that introduction. And as an introvert, to have a one-on-one call set up, video call, that's going to be much easier than, Parker, to your point, when you're with a lot of different people, or Stan, as you said, not everybody's going to be this extrovert. So we did have a question, how do you join this free network? We have the link that's been sent out. It's going to be in the Zoom follow-up. We're going to send an email to everybody who's been on this call. And then frankly, if you want to join any of our free events, it's, as we're talking about, just to get more and more connections built out. So moving on here in terms
Wait,
of,
I want to add into that, Mark. So basically, just I want to say that this is a really interesting site or tool that you've created. Sure. And people will be able to sign up for free, and basically you'll be able to put parameters in, and I can match with people across the country, and we can set up calls. So I think it's sort of like yet another way on top of what I talked about, which is here is a tool to facilitate these introductions and create more relationships. So I think the more tools that can help you facilitate these things, the better. And I'm excited to see how this works for us. Yeah.
Thank you. I will say that
matchmaking is money making. Okay. I think we all agree. So get those matches going.
Well, look, let me also just say this. Nobody on this call, maybe one or two, but all of us dislike the amount of emails that we get. And so a big part of this is all you have to do is create this profile, because then all of a sudden we know that you're interested in getting some information with introductions to respond, because I don't want anybody else to ever feel spammed, right? And so we're really trying to curate it in a direction where nobody's just getting email after email on that. So then in terms of client referrals and sphere referrals, and I think this is really important to take a look at, because a lot of folks are saying, how do I build a referral business, right? Where clients refer other clients or other potential workers. Stanton, I'm going to go with you. Do you have any tips and tricks as far as that?
I mean, I think one of the successes I've seen, which are when agents throw client parties and they're just constantly connecting folks and trying to make sure that they know, or even being invited to, a client's birthday party. You inevitably, just if you're curious, you will get a connection just from a random party. And sometimes, and I've been in this situation, you don't really feel like going to a party out in Leesburg or whatever, but you do it and you end up having a great time and you end up making connections. So I think it's just trying to get those connections and asking your clients for connections. People are scared to ask them, but a lot of your clients, they love you and they want other people to work with you as well. So by asking them, look, if you know anyone who I can help, I'd love to be able to help them as well. So.
Okay. Look, I got to say, I love that, Stanton. And I think I'm also the introvert as well, the extroverted introvert. And so my default is much more one-on-one based than it is like crowd or group or party or bar or restaurant. Like small rooms. I love small rooms. And what I would say that the commonality is, are you adding value? So I've seen in the past that from my prior company, a lot of really big events, really big things, people go and they would collect cards. This is back when people used cards, and they collect stacks of cards. Oh, look at all the cards I collected. And then they take those stacks of cards and those would go probably in a shoebox in the closet, and then they wouldn't do anything with them. And shockingly, a lot of these people are out of business now. They didn't create anything out of that. The ones who then there was sort of like another level of success, which is there's actually people who got those people, took that information, put it into their CRM. Did that work? Not really. They did like basically put a bunch of people into their CRM, hundreds of business cards, and basically spam a bunch of people with emails. Does that work? Not really. What really works is you go out, you get the information, and then you stay in touch with them. How do you stay in touch with them? I call up Stanton. What could I possibly say to Stanton? Stanton, how's the market out there? What's going on? I'd love to share you about what's going on with our market. And I can share some specific statistics. We got, gosh, last year we had 100 listings on the market. This year we're at 80. This moving here, and I'm demonstrating my expertise. This gives Stanton confidence, and I'm reconnecting with Stanton on, let's say, a quarterly basis, whatever, monthly, quarterly, every 6 months. But I'm connecting with that person. I'm adding value. I'm asking about their market so I can understand what's going on in their market. I'm letting them know about our market, which is I'm providing value by letting them know what's happening here, how the various new laws, rules are impacting us, how interest rates are impacting us, and the velocity of the market, et cetera. So that if a client or a referral comes to him, I will be the choice. Otherwise, you're not going to be the choice. So I'm building relationship. It goes back to, are we creating and building relationships? And I think amongst all the confusion that we have now, the other quote I have is, whenever markets face disruption, winners and losers emerge. Winners identify opportunities within the chaos, while losers lament the disappearance of what they held dear. So all of whatever noise you were doing in your past, to anyone out there, I've got to tell you, if there was marketing that wasn't working, or you're not getting a return on investment, you've got to stay really focused. Real estate is a people business, people, and you want to stay in relationship with as many people as possible. You can use that example I just had with agents. That is a wonderful way to be the referral agent of choice with other agents across the country.
3 times a week, you should be in front of somebody live for coffee, dinner, drinks, lunch, at least 3 times a week. And I don't care if it's a potential lead, just get in front of some people, stay in front of some people. 2 quick things. I want to pivot to NAR. We turned on the chat. Registration link is going to be in there. There's also a question. Can you do a search right now? Right now, no. Right now, we're building this out just to say, if you want to be involved for our in-person events, virtual events, be eligible for an introduction, feel free to sign up. And again, all you have to do is be licensed. So if it's a principal agent, team member, more than welcome to participate. Let's talk about NAR. And let's talk about some of the, okay, Stan. And also Stan, Suanne Scott says, what's wrong with Leesburg, Stanton? Suanne DeBerg is coming after you. So
I love Leesburg. No, it's a little far from me.
Careful there. So, okay. There's this concentrated effort right now for a lot of different folks to figure out what comes next, right? There's a lot of change. Change can be scary, but the only constant is change. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. Part of what I'm building out, obviously, I think the client experience, if we can get the best of the best, the most ethical, reputable agents connected one another, that, to your point, can role play, talk, demonstrate the value, talk about the value, there's going to be safety in that, and safety in numbers, quite frankly. So Parker, I'm going to kick it to you. What are your thoughts on the importance of connections, relationships, referrals? I know that's a little bit of a broad question, but looking down the barrel of this big paradigm shift for the industry, thoughts on connections in general for that?
Yeah, listen, I think I go back to that quote that I read earlier. So you have referral partners across the country. You need to do a little vetting with your current referral partners. In other words, I would call, like if I was calling up Stanton, are the rules changing there? Yes, they're changing, because in some states they haven't. Yes, they're changing. Great. Tell me, let's do a quick little role play. Like, what's your conversation look like? There's zero downside from this. And you're going to see if the person across from you knows what they're talking about. And you have to have a referral partner that knows what they talk about, or knows what they're talking about, and that is out there doing business, and that is practicing. By the way, I say this in a couple of meetings I've had. Please don't practice your scripts and dialogues at your listing appointment. Do that in advance with your colleagues, because this is a new dialogue. Everyone's new at it. There's no one that's like, I've got it down. It's like, no, you can't. It cannot be intellectualized. You need to sit across from someone and have that person say to you, I don't want to pay you. Go. Get that dialogue going. It's absolutely necessary for practicing. So I'd say there's a lot of vetting that needs to go on to make sure that the agents you're working with are getting better. Are they spending the time and effort that you're spending on this? And again, you can find an agent network tool anywhere in the country to find any agent anywhere doing any kind of business at any price point. And your tool, the referral network tool, is going to facilitate that with really great with great velocity, right? So I think that matchmaking is money making, and it's very important.
Love that, Stanton.
So, I mean, I think that this time is just an incredible opportunity for all of us, because it's our opportunity to actually, as an agent, to really express your value and to say, you know what, I'm worth 3% commission. In our markets, it's 2.5 or 3. I'm worth 3%, and I know the value, and I'm willing to explain that to you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, of what I bring to your listing. I'm also, as a buyer's agent, because we have buyer agency agreements here in our jurisdictions, so we've had those in place, but for other jurisdictions, it's brand new. So the important thing, I think, is, and we talked about this when we were preparing for this call, which is, if you know your value, that's great, right? But you want to make sure your referral partner also can express their value to the buyer or seller, because if they don't, if they end up working with a buyer or working with a seller, and the seller does not want to offer any commission, and they can't make this work, you're not going to get paid. You want to make sure that you're getting a referral partner who can express their value to the client, so that you can make sure that you're getting a referral. So that may be a whole nother thing you want to look at as well when you're looking at your list of referral partners. And to Parker's point, you actually may want to say, hey, so your market, do you guys have buyer agency agreements? Or you don't? Okay, so how are you handling that? Let's just kind of, hey, I'll be a buyer, and show me how you handle that situation. Do a little role play with them on the phone to see how confident they are in saying that, you know what, if the seller is not going to pay my commission, the buyer will pay my commission. And I feel confident I can make that work. So,
yeah, Stanton, would you say, this just occurred to me, another strategy for everyone on this call could be, if you get really good at that dialogue, I would probably call all my referral partners or other agents and say, here's the dialogue I have, curious to hear what you think. And
yes,
go through your spiel, your speech, your presentation. If you impress the person on the other end, and they come out of the call going, well, if I get a referral, I'm giving it to that person because they're going to nail it and they're going to get a fee.
yep.
So, otherwise it's going to be like, oh gosh, the referrals may shrink, because if you give it to someone who can't quite close the deal or get a full fee, you're going to see a decline in your income.
So you might be asking your referral partner, so the NAR thing, how are you explaining it? Oh God, I don't know. It's just so confusing. I just don't know what to do. Versus, so the NAR thing, how are you explaining it? You know what? It's not that big a deal. It's all about transparency. It allows agents in the market to really let sellers know how they're paid and let buyers know how they're paid. So it's really all about transparency, which is what this breaks down to. If you find your referral partners come more from that angle, I think it might be a better fit for you.
And also, please, 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 in advance, have the conversation about what the norms are in terms of the percentages that are paid in your market. Because what you have when folks move around, in some places, it might be 2, it might be 2.5, it might be 3. And obviously, we never want to link somebody up with a discount agent, because then it looks like you did something wrong. If you're a full fee agent, you link them up with somebody else who's doing something. So have that conversation in advance to make sure that everybody's going to be on the same page, and you don't have a previous client or a referral come back and say, hey, wait a minute, you had told me that, 3% was going to be the standard, 2.5, and I just found out it was 2 on the other side. And that could be not malicious, but it could just be a difference in market. So one last question before we pivot to Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the actual Q&A. We're going to get to those really quickly. Parker, starting with you, do you have any general or specific advice right now at this time for everybody on this call in terms of business moving forward, not just with NAR, but overall with all of your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've sort of alluded to it, but it's like really being focused on what works and eliminating the noise. I've listened to a podcast talking about confusion being the ultimate growth market. So when there is confusion in the market, there's going to be winners and losers. and you want to be in the winning side. And what that is going to take for us here at Compass is being educated, being practiced, and being experts, being masters in our field. And remember, mastery can be boring, right? Learning all of the stuff, going all the open houses, knowing the stats, knowing days on market, learning this can be boring, right? But it is that you have got to exercise that muscle to become to get mastery. And that is going to shine. And I think about other brokerages in our industry, and very few are doing the level of information output that Compass is performing right now. And listen, think about the brokerages that you know that are out there that do not have physical offices, that do not give agents the ability to physically be together. What a tremendous disadvantage. How are those people going to learn the new rules? How are those people going to learn the new scripts and dialogues and how to demonstrate their value? And the answer is going to be significantly more difficult. So this provides you an advantage now. So again, it's work on your part, but it's backing it, focusing on the fundamentals, part of which is built. Well, I'd say a huge piece of all of real estate is building your knowledge, building your relationships, right? Which is why I think this call is so important, because it's not just about just speaking about referrals, and we are talking about the referral network. It's not just about having a referral partner in a city. You must have multiple, right? So someone asked, well, how do I balance between someone who has 20 years experience and a newer agent who I met that I like, that's really sharp? It's like, well, you're going to need more than one referral partner. They're going to need to have that personality match that Stanton talked about earlier. So you've got to build a bench there. I've had referrals where I've done it, and then my referral partner's out of town. They're on vacation, whatever the case might be. So you got to have multiple. And so I think that's why something like the referral network is so important, is build that bench of those partners.
Love that, Stanton.
I mean, I guess, kind of zooming out, we all know that, matchmaking is money making, but the thing that we have to keep in mind, which is your clients who have asked for a referral, they really love and adore you. Why? Because you make them feel a certain way. So I would make sure that you're looking for agents who treat your clients the way you treat them and make them feel the way you make them feel. That's what they're looking for. They actually would love to have you, but they can't have you. So that they can't have you, make sure you're digging deep and making sure you give, you're finding agents who make them feel the way you make them feel, because that's what they'll remember.
So one thing I always coach to is the word anticipation. If anybody's familiar with the Four Seasons, the staff at the Four Seasons, they are trained to work in sync and basically provide every single customer with the exact same feel, regardless of who it is, by anticipating what it is you may need. So you don't even have to ask. And that's the feel that you get. So your referral partners, to Stan's point, should be very similar to you and how you're making people feel, because ultimately that's what they're going to remember. So very quickly, and Parker, you kind of mentioned it, a question here: how do you strike a balance between providing referrals to new agents, offering them opportunities to grow, while also maintaining strong relationships with top agents who have been in the business for 20 years? And to your point, build a bench, have multiple agents and link people up in terms of personality, the feel, the likes, the dislikes, the interests, the cultural backgrounds, things of that nature.
Their thinking styles, how are they as people?
Correct. So let's see. I am from North Carolina, living 2 miles from Duke University. So I have a lot of my clients coming from California. I'm selling them a home here, but they need a selling listing agent in California. We're getting the tech clients, medical, and the older generation that can't or just don't want to afford the cost of living in California, but want the great medical system we have in North Carolina. Would like to meet up.
So Mark, I'm going to jump in because I read this one. So what city are they moving? So California is a really big place. It's like, what city are they moving from? Talk to your sales manager. They'll put you in touch with a sales manager immediately in that city who fits your client's profile. So like for the immediate one where you have a client coming, it's like, oh my gosh, they need a listing agent in another place. Talk to your sales manager. They will connect you with the sales manager of that office. It is a fantastic resource. And so I would say, like, talking to the sales leadership in any particular area is sort of your right now referral source. Sort of your midterm building referral source is going to be something like this, the referral network. It's going to be the conventions, rather the summits and the in-person things. So again, lots of avenues, and all depend on timing.
Love that. Do you foresee any changes with how we will take referrals and set fees when the buyers are now potentially having to pay commissions and that amount is unknown?
This is totally the agents. This is totally everyone on the call. This is your responsibility, because you need to give the referral. Stanton said this earlier. You need to give the referral to someone who has the talent and mastery to get paid. But Stanton, I'll let you add on to that.
No, I'm just, because, and first thing, find out in that market, what's the norm? Is the norm, so you know what you're getting paid. If the norm is on the buy side, it's 2.5, and most of the listings out there get 2.5. I would ask my referral partner, so how confident, if the seller's not offering any commission, how confident do you feel that you can get 2.5? I don't know. I don't really feel that good about that. Well, what do you think you could get? Well, I would work for 1%. Okay, that may not be the person you want to work with, because then you're getting a referral fee off 1% versus getting a referral fee off 2.5. So have those conversations. Do not be afraid to have the conversation and talk about that up front, because it's all a business. And so you want to make sure you're working and referring with agents who are confident in the business and can make the commissions that they deserve and you deserve.
Love that. Any suggestions for sharing Compass exclusive listings to our Compass colleagues throughout the country?
Listen, there is not an easy button for this. Everyone, put your seatbelts on, because once this judgment comes into place, one of the only ways a way to communicate a commission is going to be via email. I sense your email inboxes are about ready to be flooded. I'm in with all sorts of emails with all sorts of people looking to send you a listing. I've got to tell you, no offense, everybody, but when I get a lot, I get everyone's emails, right? I get everyone's newsletters. I'm not selling right now, but it's it is not important to me what's happening in most of the rest of the country. I'm just, as an agent, I'm focused here. I'm focused on my local market. And when I get a client that's referring out, then I'm suddenly interested, right? Or if I am an active agent, I'm going to be really focused on my feeder markets for Los Angeles. That's Orange County, that's San Francisco, that's a few parts of Texas, New York, and Miami. So I'm going to focus on those areas first. And you as an agent are going to need to start getting familiar with people in those feeder markets, because email isn't going to work anymore. Someone said, hey, what about Workplace? Look, you can definitely find people on Workplace. I think that, again, using a tool like the referral network is going to get you something a little bit more specific. You're going to understand a little bit more about their productivity, about their languages they speak, about whatever. So I think that this is a little more specific and might be a little bit more focused.
There are groups out there at Compass who do form, and they're across the country that are interested in, say, farms. And so it's an example. So if you have a particular interest, you can maybe look, and maybe even on Workplace, check it out to see, is there a group that you could join as part of, and they set up these collections where they kind of aggregate a bunch of different kinds of properties across the country that are, say, farms. So that's one way to do it as well, just to sort of an off chance.
And by the way, and I know we're just about at time, I have seen, I don't know how many of these there are, but it's there are just agents who just create little referral networks of their, they meet 5 or 6 people across the country and they do whatever, monthly little Zoom meetings or whatever. So I'd say once you get your people together, and again, this network referral tool may be the thing that helps you build your bench, but there's nothing stopping you from being the person who gathers those 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people together on a monthly basis to talk about what's happening in their market. So be that person, and you will for sure get a whole bunch of help there.
And continue showing up for it. I mean, that's the other thing here. If there's an event or if there's something to do, show up for it and just get to know everybody. So look, we are at time. Thank everybody. Parker, Stanton, thank you both so much for attending, being a part of this, and sharing your expertise with everybody. We will send out a follow-up with links, the recording, and if anybody has any questions, please shoot us a note and let us know. Love all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.